Oh, sorry, Tao. I'm in a bit of a funk. I need something that will get my spirit back. Oh, speaking of Eldridge, hello? Oh yeah, I can totally do that. And you said I get something out of it? Okay, cool. And how long will I be gone? Like an hour? A week?
6 months later.
Months? Oh, I'm back. Wow, I was gone for a while. What the? I have a new look. I look like an anime waifu. You know what this means, right, Tao? Ooh. Or ada ada. That will be on the internet forever. Fuck. Greetings, brave adventurers, and welcome to The Keep. My name is Lindsey the Keeper, and it is my duty to tell cringy tales from r/RPG horror stories to protect reality from eldritch horrors with the help of my little friend, Tao. Wow, new look who this much, am I right? I am sorry for the long delay. A lot has happened and it put me in a funk, but I promise that I am back for good, and I am going to be posting a couple of videos today to make up for it. Plus, I am gonna have a couple of announcements towards the end of this video, so please stay tuned. Hello brave heroes, Lindsey the Keeper from the future. I want to say that when I said I was going to make a couple of videos for today, I was ambitious. I was currently in the middle of editing this video before I realized I won't be able to do 2 videos on the same day. But what I should have said was I was going back to my normal posting videos on Wednesday, but if I get a chance to have that second video out this week, that would be cool. If I don't, then don't worry about it. Still, regular schedule. Thanks again for listening. Back to the video. Anywho, for those who have been following me, you know my views about neckbeards, right? Anyone who is new to my channel or using the internet for the first time, let me give you all a quick rundown. Neckbeards are, according to Oxford, men who are socially inept and physically unappealing, especially one who has an obsessive interest in computing. They are everywhere, and they are not that hard to find. They are usually ungroomed men who act like trash humans, failing at courting females, and love to start arguments on anything that they are obsessed of, which includes TTRPGs. I think I might have dated one. Now, I have read both on this channel and alone about some of these neckbeards, and they are bad. However, in my opinion, this is the worst neckbeard out of every neckbeard story I have ever read. As I stated earlier, not only am I going to read the story, but I am reading all 3 parts of this story. Why? Because if we are going to celebrate, we have to celebrate properly. Now, sit back, relax, and cuddle up to your favorite Tingle as I read this horrifying trilogy. Enjoy! Na na na, danger zone. This trilogy was written by user Shark of the Streets with the title Ballad of GRIMEY, The Man Who Killed 3 Campaigns, Part 1. This is a tribute to the worst human being I have ever encountered in my long life of gaming. He checked all the boxes of being that guy, from metagaming to creepy roleplaying to deliberately trying to end real-life relationships. In addition to weekly board game nights and running into this unpleasant person at comic shops and in conventions, I played in 3 different campaigns with him, each of them ending when he did something so f***ing atrocious then it instantly killed the game. Here are the key players in our tale of horror. Me, the new guy and unwilling punching bag of our antagonist. Bro, my friend who introduced me to our game group. Hosts the game nights. And Grimey hosts high school/college friend and all around piece of shit. Campaign 1, Dark Heresy. I had just graduated and found a job near my college's city. Most of my friends had left by then, but bro was still around and told me he was part of a game group. I hadn't touched a D20 in 4 years, but I was eager to get back in the game and meet some new friends while I was at it. So I asked bro if he could snag me an invitation. Bro comes through and I get a text from host with an address and a weekly schedule. I showed up to the next session an hour early. Host told me that the group was in the middle of a Dark Heresy campaign, but the GM was willing to add one more person. I spent an hour with host going over the ins and outs of Dark Heresy, which is a gritty and violent investigation and combat-focused TTRPG set in the Warhammer 40k universe. I didn't know much about Warhammer 40k, so I thought I should play a younger character to indicate their naivete in the world. I then asked for a rundown of the party composition. The entire party was playing a combat-heavy class except for one. So, I built my character around charisma and deception to balance the team. The party was also mostly male characters, so I made her female. And finally, the party was trying to escape from a prison planet, so my character was someone born on the prison planet and longed to see what lies outside the wall-laden planet. By the time I finished putting my character together, the rest of the players began to arrive. Grimey came last. I introduced myself to all the players and made sure to go out of my way to thank Grimey for letting me join mid-campaign. Grimey didn't seem to care too much, and I took that as a sign that he was probably stressed at the thought of incorporating a new character into his campaign. I got my sheet approved by him and did my best to be a support role in the party. I was nervous at the time, so I avoided the limelight, made sure not to interrupt another player while they're talking, and provide a gift in the form of unhealthy snacks. And then the game got underway. At first, I was enjoying the session. My character was terrible at combat, but she had great investigation skills and could deceive anyone like it was no one's business. Grimey would often hint plot hooks or clues to mysteries which I wrote down and then encouraged the group to go after. My character was meek, but resourceful, and generally liked among everyone. Except for Grimey. It happened slowly, so I did not catch it right away. In combat, enemies would prioritize me despite having two heavily armored characters standing without cover firing rocket launchers, a ninja running into melee with a power sword, and an elite sniper in the back. If I did not spend my first round in combat jumping into cover, Grimey would always had several mooks target me. Sometimes, enemies got the jump on us and I was taken out instantly, but always saved by one of my teammates. Then, my deception tactics became more challenging. Grimey originally had me roll deception whenever I made a cover story, but soon I had to roll deception for every lie I told in that cover story, and one failed roll would ruin the entire attempt to solve things non-violently. Sometimes, I'd fail even when passing my rolls. At one point, I dressed up like a scientist and secretly led the party through a bunch of laboratories, distracting guards and unlocking doors as I went ahead of them. One of our frontline heavies see a dangerous-looking guard in the room and tries to one-shot him before he's aware of the party's presence. The shot misses, but alerts every guard in the room, and they all open fire on me. According to Grimey, the guards assumed that I was with a band of heavily armored mercs despite me being in disguise and being across the room from them. So, I went down again. My party finished the fight and I was brought to the medbay where at this point I was a regular customer. Another fun story was when our party had to investigate a merchant who may have been selling heretical items. I disguised myself as a noble, used my connections to get me fake IDs, and spread rumors that a noble was looking to purchase goods on the black market and show up with one of the other PCs as my hired muscle. GRIMEY says my muscle is too suspicious and forces me to roll a very challenging persuasion roll to let my muscle come with me. Miraculously, I made it, but GRIMEY was huff about it, saying that the merchant's guard are on high alert and will shoot me if either I or my muscle do anything suspicious. A few more deception rolls and the merchant reveals a necklace, which he claims is an unholy artifact. I asked how he could prove that the item is an unholy artifact, and the merchant puts the necklace on my character. No rolls, no roleplaying, no way to avoid this. I tell GRIMEY that there is no way my character would ever let someone put a cursed item anywhere near her, and GRIMEY just cackles and says, "You wanted to know if the necklace was unholy." My character suffers a permanent debuff, no way to remove it. I was pissed. So, I am sure that we all have that burning question you want to ask GRIMEY. If you didn't like OP, why did you let him join your game in the first place? And I have a theory on this answer. Not a game theory, but more like a TTRPG theory. I believe that GRIMEY was tempted to show his power over the group. Now, when I say this, I don't mean the power of the GM. I'm talking more about the influence of the group, which is a trickier topic. I am assuming GRIMEY's plan originally was to try and show off and impress OP with his superior skills of TTRPG and anything nerdy. However, instead of that, we got a player who not only was actually a team player in the party group, but everyone actually liked them. So, what happens next? For GRIMEY, since he's acting like an attention-seeking jealous person, he bullies OP. Why? Because he wants to show how powerful he is. Even as a GM, he demonstrates his petty attitude and makes the game uncomfortable for OP. But unfortunately, this is where the story gets worse from here. I never knew why GRIMEY hated my character so much, though I later realized it wasn't my character he hated, but the player. He would talk over me when we were hanging out outside the game, criticize my taste in comics, movies, or TV shows, and would usually dismiss any points I make while having a conversation. All of this eventually boiled into one act that completely destroyed his campaign. A mob boss had been connected to recent cult activity, and we had been given permission to bring him in. The problem was that he never left his well-guarded mansion and did not invite strangers. Me and our sniper had the highest stealth stats, so we paired up to explore the enemy grounds in order to scout for possible entry methods. GRIMEY had us roll stealth every single time we do anything. Walk down a hallway, roll stealth. Peek around the corner, roll stealth. Whisper to your party member an inch from your face, roll stealth. GRIMEY got more impatient with every successful roll we made, but our luck eventually ran out and one of us failed our stealth roll. Every guard instantly surrounded us. They just materialized behind every corner, popped out of every door. GRIMEY made it pretty evident that me and the sniper were dead if we so much as blinked. I thought, okay, so now the party gets to plan a daring rescue. That's cool. But I was wrong. So very wrong. First, Sniper got interrogated. GRIMEY would scream questions at Sniper Player, and Sniper Player rolled to resist blurting information. At one point, GRIMEY had a guard throw a punch at Sniper, dealing a bit of damage. Overall, I thought it was dark, but fitting to Dark Heresy. Then came my turn, and here's where things got messed up. Grimey decided that regular interrogation was too good for my character. The enemy guards were going to... Nope! Nope, 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 no. We are not going to finish that sentence or the rest of the paragraph at all. Why am I not reading this part? It's because it's disgusting in every moral compass ever. You do not need a cartoon character of any sorts, bear, bird, crab, dragon, to tell you that this is not okay. If you can't understand why this is not okay, then you have more issues than I can provide. The TTRPG world is a great place to bring out your greatest imaginations for story and world building, and it's usually fun with the right type of people. But when you give someone with an extremely twisted mind power to control this world, then you get results like this in your game. Now, I don't want to scare off anyone from TTRPG altogether. Like I said, when you find the right group, you can have lots of wondrous adventures for a lifetime. It's why this subreddit exists. Not to scare anyone from TTRPG, but more like lessons from players and DMs who had their own problems and sharing their experience from it. Our only female player gets out of her seat, packs her things, and leaves without saying a word. She never plays a game with Grimey again. I'm in utter shock, as were most of the other players. No one said, "Good game." No one even wanted to acknowledge that we have a session next week. The only person who looked like they were having a good time was Grimey, who was nudging host while shoveling his game books into his backpack saying, "Nice finisher, right? Really sets up the dystopia feel of 40k. Host kind of just blankly agrees, not wanting to say anything. I show up to host's place next week, and we're all playing board games instead. No one wants to play Dark Heresy anymore. Host says that he has a campaign in mind and wants me to come. I think, thank God, as long as Grimey isn't the GM, I'm safe. I was so very wrong. End of part 1. My knowledge of Warhammer is like my knowledge for most sports games. I don't know jack shit from them. I do know through a sibling that it's a game where you take one army and fight them in multiple armies as well. I know there is more to it, but I honestly didn't care too much about it, and I do apologize for that. But what I do know is that there are other Warhammer RPGs that you can play and have your own experience. Or if you are like my sibling, you probably like painting the miniatures more. However, I think no matter what game we play, we can all agree that Grimey needs to be kicked into outer space with no protection whatsoever. Also, an advice for anyone who has a guy friend or is part of a male representing group. If one of your bros acted like Grimey, no matter if it's in-game or out of game, call him out. Call them out for being a horrible person because that is not okay. And if they continue to act like this disgusting, drop them as a friend. You should never surround yourself with toxic waste like that. But remember, this is only part 1, and we have 2 more parts to go. Part 2 of the Ballad of Grimey, the man who killed 3 campaigns. Campaign 2, Deadlands. Folks tend to ask, why did you keep playing? Or why didn't anyone kick out Grimey from the group? The answer is a bit tragic and is tied to Grimey and Hostess's relationship. Host was the only person in our group who had a home big enough to fit our group, and save for Grimey, the group itself was great. But Grimey and Host go way back. Host is a nice guy, but his self-esteem is shit, and he tries to please everyone. Grimey naturally latched on to Host for years, bullying him into a subservient friendship position. Grimy convinced host that he was the only true friend he'd ever have, and that meant host included Grimy for all of his nerdy activities. A few weeks after the horrific Dark Heresy campaign ended, host announced that he wanted to DM a Deadlands campaign. I'd never heard of Deadlands before, but host described it as the supernatural TV show but set in the Wild West. I was sold. Session 0 came in, and as per my normal character creation strategy, I asked what everyone was playing. Of course, Grimy had to keep his character secret, but everyone else casually mentioned that they were making gunslingers and melee-focused characters. So I went for a spellcaster class, the Mad Scientist. I wanted to make a super quirky character and did so in spades by taking hindrances. Hindrances are like feats in D&D, except they're all universally bad. But taking hindrances allow you to take actual feats or increase your base stats. I maxed out my hindrances and used them to bump up my stats so that I was pretty good at everything, but amazing at my magic skills. This helped me deal with bullshit combat scenarios that frequently came up. We wrapped up Session 0 by going around the group, giving a quick summary of our characters. One guy was a zombie gunslinger, another was a ship-shaping Native American, and one person was a Men in Black style secret agent. Cool stuff. Grimy ironically had the most interesting character, a rich Harris with high charisma who was a huckster, a spellcaster who uses gambling to cast spells. His character was motivated to track down her husband's killer. I called out to Grimy, complimenting his cool character, to which he huffed and said, "All of my characters are amazing. I don't have trouble making original OP characters like some people." Not sure if that jab had been directed at me, host, or another player, but I let it slide. I introduced my mad scientist. As a fun backstory hook, I said that my scientist introduced himself as a doctor, but in reality, he was a college dropout since he felt college was a waste of time. I figured this could be fun if he run into other mad scientists or even former classmates of his. Session 1, all of us are in Connecticut boarding a train to head out west for a science convention in San Francisco. Hosts set up these scenarios where each of our characters bump into each other and get the chance to roleplay an introduction. Finally, the RP scene between me and Grimy came up. Host sets up the scene. Grimy, as you are waiting to board the train, one of the crew members runs up to you with a concern related to your luggage. As he leads you to the luggage loading zone, he points out that your luggage is too bulky to load with the rest. OP, you see this happening as you are walking to the train. This is perfect, I think to myself. I have spells that could help move heavy objects. My scientist saunters to Grimy's Harris and the crew member. "Excuse me, madam, I couldn't help but overhear your dilemma. Could I be of assistance?" Grimy got really pissy, turning to me, then immediately back to host. "I do not know who this riffraff is, but I do not want him anywhere near my things. In fact, I want to buy his room on the train and use it for storage." Now, Grimy had taken 2 feats for his character, wealth and charisma. Both meant he could win just about any social situation, and the crew member said, "Let me talk to my boss." The scientist awkwardly introduced himself and tries to convince Grimy that I could solve the luggage issue. "As if you don't look like a doctor. You look like a charlatan. I had my eye on you." At this point, Grimy writes some notes down and passes them to host. Host reads them, looks concerned at Grimy, then shrugs and says, "Okay." The crewman returns with the supervisor, and the supervisor agrees to let Grimy have my character's room for storage. The supervisor then turns to my character, apologizes, and hands me an upgrade to a personal suite on the train. Grimy is not happy to hear this. "What the f***, host? How come OP gets a free suite?" Host tells Grimey that people cannot just spend money to kick someone out of a train, and upgrading passengers that are being inconvenienced is normal. Grimey continued to yell at Host, demanding that my character not be allowed to go on the train, suggesting that I shouldn't even be allowed to play in this campaign. Host sheepishly stands his ground, not out of moral justification, but out of no way to approve of Grimey's demands without sounding like a complete lunatic. Grimey was so out of shape that even an argument caused him to sweat. After finally catching his breath, he calmed down and his character decided to offer mine a peace offering, an apple. My character thanks Grimey and then tosses the apple behind his head. Grimey started breathing deep again. He took a massive inhale and then he screamed, "You metagaming piece of shit!" Everyone on the table jumped back when he said that. Grimey began ranting at me that there is no way my character would know that Grimey had drugged the apples. "Wait, hold on," was the entire table's reaction. Grimey showed Host his character sheet and said that his Harris always carries drugged apples as part of her backstory, and the only way OP's character would know was if he was metagaming. Now, I had not known about Grimey's poison apples, but I handed Host my own character sheet and pointed at a section of the sheet where players can input personality qualities. One such quality was irrational fears, and I had listed apples as a fear. I said that my character thought there was a special meaning to the phrase, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away," and therefore distrusts all apples. Oh, god damn it. The group got a chuckle out of my explanation, and Grimey relented his point. No apologies, just a grumpy acknowledgement that we can now proceed to the actual story. Grimey made sure to make my gameplay experience as miserable as possible. To start, the note he passed to Host was that Grimey wanted to hire a private investigator to do a background check on my scientist. Grimey had no reason other than he wanted an in-game justification for why his Harris knows my scientist's backstory. What was supposed to be a fun side plot hook became a reason for Grimey to ridicule me during every RP session. I'd be blending in with other scientists, and here comes Grimey, loudly proclaiming that my scientist was a fraud, that he was a college dropout. I'd make up credentials to get our party into a lab, and Grimey shoves me to the side and tells the guards how I'm not supposed to be there because her private eye dug up the truth about me. Every time I tried to roleplay, Grimey would interrupt the scene, acting smug and obnoxiously divulging my character backstory. Combat was arguably worse. My mad scientist was mostly a supporter caster, but Grimey went full-on damage dealer, focusing on area effect spells. Grimey would always cast spells in such a way they would always catch my scientist in the crossfire. Grimey would sometimes move his hair specifically so that her attack would hit me as well. Fortunately, I was a smart player. I had a lot of defensive spells, and my chunkier base stats allowed me to tank Grimey's bullshit. Host also took notes and made sure that enemies didn't target me since I was already battling Grimey. Whenever it was an enemy's turn, Grimey would remind Host that OP hadn't been attacked in a while, and Host would nervously point out that my scientist hadn't attacked the bad guys, only providing buffs for my allies. This broke out into an argument at every combat encounter. Things came to an ugly head during our first major boss battle. Grimey killed a rogue mech scientist, which caused his latest creation, a 12-foot tall steampunk mech, to come alive. Grimey goes up to the mech and rolls persuasion to convince the mech that OP had killed his master. Grimey rolled really well, but Host said, "It's a robot. It only does what it's programmed to do, and it's programmed to rampage." GRIMEY got so pissed off that he refused to help in this battle, spending each of his actions trying to persuade the robot to kill my character or badmouth the other players for teaming up with an evil mad scientist such as myself. Our party manages to defeat the mech without GRIMEY's help, but the mech is now set to self-destruct and we have X amount of turns to get far enough away from it before it explodes. Host set up a riveting chase sequence in which we have to escape from a laboratory labyrinth, getting past robotic guards and locked doors. GRIMEY decided that it would be a good use of his time to stand behind every locked door and slam it in my face whenever I try to go through, locking it behind him. As a mad scientist, dismantling the locks on a door isn't that difficult, but it eats up time. But I had something else GRIMEY didn't have. A friend. Bro was sick and tired of GRIMEY's bullshit and followed GRIMEY everywhere his hairs went. Every time GRIMEY tried to delay my character, Bro's 6-foot-tall Native American would drag her away, giving me plenty of time to escape. Unsurprisingly, GRIMEY was not happy that my scientist survived the boss fight and the explosion, at which point his character proclaims, "I am going to continue my quest for my husband's killer by heading east." Now, Host had done a pretty solid job defining everyone's plot hooks being in the west, literally railroading us by taking a train heading west. But like a stuck-up brat, GRIMEY wanted to travel east. Host then described how an eerie man in black manifests in front of them, tells GRIMEY that he killed the husband, and the man in black will wait for GRIMEY in San Francisco before mysteriously vanishing in black smoke. Even with this Deus Ex Machina, GRIMEY whined that he wanted to go back east and refused to travel with these lunatics. Out of character, GRIMEY also berated Host, demanding that everyone else make new characters to fit his character's insane plot twist. We have been playing this campaign for months, and you could see that after each session, Host's passion had slowly been drained. This was the last straw. All of his story threads for our characters, all of the plot development, none of it mattered to him anymore. He just shut his books and said, "That boss fight is probably as good as it'll get. Let's play something else." It was heartbreaking. The next few weeks were spent playing board games. During one such day, Bro gets me alone and says he wants to run his campaign. I asked if GRIMEY was invited, and Bro said that he talked to Host, and where Host plays, GRIMEY plays. I shuddered, but Bro put his hand on my shoulder and told me, "I got you." Bro had his work cut out for him, but he definitely gave GRIMEY a taste of his own medicine. End of part 2. Seriously, GRIMEY? Seriously? I understand that you are very uncultured when it comes to hygiene practice, and you have the personality of a literal dumpster fire of everything cringe, but broadcasting how much of an entitled baby you are is extremely annoying. Here's some hard facts. If you act like GRIMEY in games, no matter what your personal vendetta is towards an individual, not only are you making it miserable for that person, but you are making it miserable to other players and/or DM around you. It's not cute or funny or cool. It's pathetic and lame and literally tells others around you how much of a foul person you are. On a side note, I would like to try out this game since I'm a big fan of Supernatural, and it does have an interesting concept of being in the Wild West era. Maybe I can try out being the mad scientist with an apophobia, or a sultry rich heiress who can be your queen of hearts if you dealt the cards right. Part 3 and final story of the Ballad of GRIMEY, the man who killed 3 campaigns. Interlude. This is a short story of GRIMEY's f***iness that is unrelated to his campaign serial killings. You can skip down to Campaign 3, A Song of Ice and Fire, if you just want the TTRPG horror. Well, I guess we should skip to them. I'm totally joking. Give us the cringe. Over the past year, in secret, Host had begun a long-distance relationship with a woman he met online. After the abrupt end of his campaign, he disappeared for a few weeks. We had all thought it was due to him being depressed over his poor campaign, but when we returned, we were all surprised to find out that Host got married and spent the last few weeks having his new wife move in. Host's wife was not a nerd, but she did wonders for our weekly sessions. Host's house became spotless. Host began organizing his games, comics, and other nerdy gear, and we always had freshly made and healthy snacks for our game nights. Host's wife also put a stop to Host's poor eating habits, and the switch from daily junk food to home-cooked meals showed. Host looked healthier, thinner, and more importantly, happy. So, of course, Grimey didn't want any of this. Grimey told the group when Host wasn't around how much he hated Host's wife. He said Host's wife was rude to everyone, disrespecting us with healthy snacks, and was changing Host into something he's not. Most of the group ignored Grimey, with the others reaffirming that Host's wife was only rude to Grimey because Grimey was rude to her. Grimey doesn't need to eat the healthy snacks, and Host is both in the best shape of his life and the happiest he's ever been. Grimey would always raise his voice when you pointed out the flaws of his arguments until it would attract the attention of Host or Host's wife, at which point he'd shut up and murmur to himself. Grimey's next plan was to attack Host's newly acquired self-confidence. I came early one game night and found Grimey huddled up next to Host, telling him to divorce his wife. It was like some bad sitcom. "She's taking away your freedom. She doesn't understand you. She uses you for your house and money. Despite her making more money. Ooh." Maybe it was the years of abuse finally hitting Host, or maybe it was the Deadlands campaign that was the last straw, or maybe Host's wife was just that good for his mental health. But Host, in the first time since I've known him, stood up to Grimey and told him to leave his wife alone. Times were changing, and this was the first step to the end of Grimey's reign. Campaign 3, A Song of Ice and Fire. Bro had gotten bit by the Game of Thrones bug hard, and he lost it when he learned there was a Song of Ice and Fire TTRPG. He gave me a quick rundown, and I was particularly intrigued by two aspects of the system that are important for the story. First, there were two forms of combat. A traditional combat system in which you fought with weapons until a side was defeated, and a social combat in which you present arguments using social stats to sway NPCs to your way of thinking. Second, this was a setting with virtually no magic, and serious injuries could take months of in-game time to heal. The pacing of the game was supposed to be a mix of political intrigue and combat, making it one of the more unique systems I'd ever run across. As per my normal character creation, I asked our players what types of builds they were making. Grimey, as before, refused to divulge anything about his character, but everyone else was running either a pure combat or combat social hybrid character. I rolled up a Meister, which for those unaware is a scholar, considered highly prized in any kingdom for their wealth of information. I focused on healing knowledge, which allowed me to reduce in-game healing times by more than half, and I put all of my remaining points in social encounters, as I felt a scholar would be out of place on a battlefield. Grimey, when Session 1 began, revealed a pure combat archer with a 10-page backstory. Bro, having seen Grimey's bullshit before, read over the entire backstory, which Grimey refused to show until Session 1. Bro flat out refused, stating that, "No, you cannot be the head of the army and have the loyalty of the Lord's military over the Lord himself." Grimey had become more agitated since Host got married and showed that agitation by slamming his hand-sized fist into the wooden table in hopes to appear more threatening. Bro treated Grimey as a child he was and told him he could be a sergeant-at-arms and have a small platoon of soldiers. Grimey continued pounding on the table, but Bro's ruling was final and he relented. The session finally began and Bro laid out our first mission. A neighboring baron and ally to our lord had been suffering from bandits hiding in their forest, preventing merchants and traders from getting through and slowly dwindling their supplies. It was left to our group to decide how we could aid the baron. I suggested sending supplies to the baron, but accompanied by some soldiers disguised as traders. If the supplies are ambushed by bandits, then we'd be able to counter-ambush them. The party was in agreement, but Grimey didn't like the plan, mostly because he didn't come up with it. Grimey wanted to go to our neighboring allies and burn their forest down to flush out the bandits, then bring the full force of our military against them. While this plan seems insane, Bro thought this would be an excellent time to test out the social combat system. Our lord requested me and Grimey's presence in his throne room, each of us standing before him to present our arguments. Grimey goes first, preaching that might is right and force yields results. My Meister presents the facts that burning an ally's forest while marching in with the full force of our military might be seen as an act of aggression that would also leave our own castle vulnerable. With my focus in social combat, I easily outrolled Grimey's argument, which led Grimey declaring to Bro, "I challenge OP to one-on-one combat." And before Bro could say anything, Grimey described charging at my character with a short sword and skewering him. Grimey rolls his dice and says, "I hit and you take 11 damage." Bro shuts Grimey down, saying that before any of that happens, 2 of the Lord's guards tackled Grimey to the ground. Grimey slammed his fist into the table again, screeching how his dice rolls were high. Bro face palms and informed Grimey, "You were called to the Lord for a discussion. You took out your weapon in front of the Lord, which is already grounds for being attacked, and then you unprovokingly charge at his Meister. The Lord now has no reason to believe your plan could succeed now, and you will be stripped of your rank if you continue this behavior." Bro was cool like that. Grimey was so pissed that he declared that we were done for tonight, packed his things, and left. After he was gone, Bro told everyone that he was still down to run the session, and we did some RPing and finalizing our mission's plans. Session 2 rolled around. Grimey was furious that the group had the audacity to play without him after he left and refused to listen to our plans. We had 2 carts full of supplies and an armed platoon disguised as merchants, including Grimey's fellow soldiers. Grimey refused to dress up as a merchant and ordered his soldiers to do the same. As we head off, Bro explained that our group will need a scout to plan their route and avoid ambushes. Grimey volunteered and the group agreed as his scouting stats were high. Grimey manages to do a decent job, rerouting our carts away from damaged roads and bad weather. Then Grimey found the first bandit, hiding as a lookout. When he came back to report to the group, he didn't mention it. Out of character, everyone was asking why Grimey wasn't warning about the bandit, and Grimey smugly exclaims, "It's what my character would do, and don't think about metagaming this." Our group is inevitably ambushed, but we managed to drive the bandits back. Most of the group took damage as they fought, but me, being a non-combat role, I hid under the cart. This pissed off Grimey, who was berating my Meister for being a coward as I was patching up our party and NPCs post-battle. I offered to assist Grimey, who'd taken some damage. He called me a fake Meister and said he could bandage himself off better than any quack could. Grimy failed his medicine check and now suffered a movement speed penalty until he got proper medical treatment. One of our NPCs volunteered to help Grimy with his scouting, saying that 2 scouts would more likely find a hidden ambush. But Grimy huffed, telling Bro not to do his job. Grimy continued to solo scout, but I asked the NPC scout to go ahead and scout anyway. Grimy yelled at Bro, telling him that he had no point in the group now, to which Bro responded with, "Maybe if you did your job and warned people of ambushes, your reputation among the NPCs would be stronger." Grimy slammed the table again, but Bro simply stared down Grimy like a parent who was about to spank their child. Eventually, our NPC scouts reported a larger group of bandits readying to ambush us. Host orders our stealthiest NPCs and PCs to sneak past the bandits and hide. When the bandits would attack, they'd ambush the bandits and pincer them from behind. A solid plan. Grimy was part of the stealthy party and hid himself in a tree. Right as our group was getting into position, Grimy says he impersonates one of the bandits' voice and yells that there's a meister in the back card who'd be worth a king's ransom. This ruined our surprise round, which resulted in a bandit nudging an arrow and firing first into Grimy. Grimy turned red, cursing at Bro as a metagaming asshole playing favorites. Bro told Grimy that, "You can't pretend to be a bandit. You don't know what any of them sound like. All you did was give away your position. Now make a dex check to prevent yourself from falling out of the tree." Grimy continued to smack the table with his fist, then declared he needed some fresh air and step outside to cool off. With Grimy out of the picture, the rest of the party had a challenging battle. Even my meister had to draw a knife at some point when our backline was overwhelmed, resulting in me getting a gnarly stab wound. Grimy returned as we wrapped up the fight. One of the PCs searched the bodies and uncovered a coded message with an emblem of a neighboring kingdom, giving us our first major story hook. I patched myself and all the other injured PCs and NPCs as one of Grimy's soldiers dragged his unconscious body to me. Let it never be said that I metagame or hold a grudge, as I rushed over to Grimy's character, knowing full well I could have ignored him. I patched him up, made some recovery drugs with wild plants, and got him conscious again. Grimy smiles and says he pulls out his dagger and stabs my character. Bro demands Grimy give a non-bullshit reason why he attacked his own medic. Grimy argues that he was in battle mode before falling out of the tree and his soldier instincts would keep him in fight mode even as he was coming around. Bro glanced at my direction, I shrugged my shoulders, and Grimy was allowed to make his attack. It hits, and now the group's only medic is unconscious. Grimy glares at me with a shit-eating grin and then volunteers to scout ahead. This time, Grimy actually warns the party of ambushes, which we avoid. We reach our destination, the Baron's castle. Half the party, including Grimy, need extreme medical attention. We're put up in the Baron's private medical wing, where I eventually regain consciousness and began patching myself faster than the Baron's doctor and nurses could believe. Host had already convinced the Baron that we are here to help, and with a generous introduction, I was given temporary control over the Baron's medical staff. Before this exchange, Grimy had been a model patient wanting to get back to full health as soon as possible, but when the news of my temporary promotion got to the medical wing, Grimy refused any further treatment. He lashed out at the nurses, doctors, and anyone else working under a lying meister who will betray the Baron. Grimy's low diplomacy scores meant that no one believed him, resulting in him getting out of bed and attacking my character whenever I tried to help him. That's when I get a clever idea and pass Bro a note. Bro looks at it, smiles, and continues role-playing. Next time we went to Grimy's perspective, Bro describes a meal prepared for him, which Grimy then eats. Bro asks Grimy to make a constitution save, and being injured, Grimey gets massive penalties to the save, failing it. Your head feels heavy as the poppy hidden in your meal begins to numb your body and fill you with pleasant dreams. Yes, I had ordered the nurses to drug Grimey's food as he was clearly delirious with fever. Grimey shrieked, giving us a poor Donkey Kong impersonation as he alternated slamming his left and right fists into the table. His hands were actually swollen by the end of this fit, which only pissed Grimey off more because out of character, I offered to fetch him the first aid kit. In character, I rolled extremely well to heal Grimey up. Fast forward a few sessions, and our party is making progress piecing together a mystery regarding a rival lord who was seeking to cut off our lord's allies as part of a plan to take over our lands. Grimey had zero contribution to our progress as he couldn't leave his bed. Instead, Grimey began writing page-long notes and passing them to Bro. Bro read them all, and during one of our RP sessions, he described this scene. As you're discussing your most recent discovery, one of the nurses OP recognizes approaches him, asking for a private audience. The nurse explains that Grimey has been handing her letters in secret, demanding that they be sent to your lord without the party's knowledge. But due to his temperament, the nurse thought it would be best if OP saw them first. Bro passes me the notes, which were just pages of nonsense that can be summed up as, "Your Meister is drugging me as proof of his inevitable betrayal." I describe the Meister thanking the nurse, and when she leaves the room, I tear up the notes, which I then mimic in real life. And that was it. The straw that broke Grimey. The entire party was having a blast in Bro's campaign, half of which was just enjoying Grimey's freakout. Grimey, in character, had lost all his standings, losing the respect of his men and the favor of his lord for his out-of-character behavior. Bro, unlike any other GM, had given Grimey consequences for his actions, and Grimey couldn't compute. He tore up his character sheet and tossed it in Bro's face. He turned to Host and demanded to end this campaign, to which Host, having grown some form of backbone, responded that it was Bro's decision when the campaign ended. Grimey would have screamed, but his voice had become a sore mess. He was sweating profusely, and his fists had become swollen and darkened from pounding on the table. He sloppily threw all of his things in a bag, flipped off me, Host, and Bro, then slammed the door as he left. We were silent for a minute before Bro, with a look of satisfaction, said, "I'm ending the campaign here. I will never be able to top that climax." Epilogue. After that session ended, Grimey stopped coming to board game nights and instead ran a new campaign, making sure to tell me, in my face, that I was not invited to play. I couldn't care less, and Host told me that said campaign only went for 3 sessions before Grimey got frustrated and stopped running it. I learned a month later that Grimey lost his job at a comic book shop. For years, Grimey had bragged that he was a superior nerd because he got employee discounts on comics and game books. I have visited that shop and it was actually pretty nice, but check on their Google and Yelp reviews and it was listed as a 2-star establishment with negative reviews from parents and women mentioning, "One employee was rude, insulting my taste in comics and games, and demanded that I buy things based on his recommendation." After Grimey lost his job, he completely dropped from the group, and even Host stopped mentioning him. So that's the story of Grimey. He is the ultimate lesson in why shitty people sometimes get away with being shitty. But he is also the hope that karma does exist, and for that, I will always thank Grimey for entering and leaving my life. End of story. That concludes the trilogy of Grimey, a tale of a neckbeard that flew too high to the TTRPG skies before crashing down to Earth. Grimey is the warning sign that all groups should keep an eye out for. so they can avoid it at all costs. I believe there are ways on how not to be a grimy, which the number one step is be a decent human being and treat people how you want to be treated. This story is actually very special to me because this was the first story that I listened to by Den of the Drake. It was the video that inspired me to do this and wanting to improve it every step of the way. So, thank you for supporting me on this. Now, for the announcements. Other than the new looks, I have made a Twitch channel a while back, and I am gonna start using it to stream stories live and the occasional gaming from my favorite popular games like Marvel Rivals or other games that I enjoy playing like Saints Row 4 or Ukami. Also, my Linktree has some additional links as well. One is coffee and the other being Throne. If you want to donate or send me goodies, you can through this. I will be updating my merch store as well in the future, and I am working on both a Patreon and a Discord channel, but both of those are going to take a bit longer before I officially will get them up and running. But I promise you will be the first ones to know about it. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to give me more support, you can follow me on my socials through my Linktree, and if you have stories you want me to read, please post them on my subreddit or email it to me. Until then, may you find your worth in the waking world.